I never entered Richard's office without permission. In 30 years of marriage, that mahogany door had always been closed to me. But on that Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, at 2:47 in the afternoon, I needed a pen to sign the florist's delivery receipt. My purse was in the car, and Richard was in Manhattan. I opened the door. The smell of Cohiba cigars hung in the air. The windows overlooked the rose garden I planted in 1995 when I was pregnant with Lucas and believed that building beautiful things was enough to keep a marriage alive. Everything exactly as I imagined. Except for the photo. It hung on the wall behind the desk, in a spot visitors would never see, a discreet gold frame. And inside it, a woman smiling. My heart stopped, because that woman was my sister, Helena. The same Lena who disappeared on March 14th, 2005, 19 years ago. The same Lena whose body was never found. The same Lena whose face I searched for in every crowd, every nightmare for 19 years. She was alive, and she was smiling. I approached the photo like someone approaching a ghost. Helena didn't look 48, she looked 42. Brown hair with blonde highlights shorter than before. Green eyes, mom's eyes, and around her neck, a silver necklace with a crescent moon pendant. I bought that necklace for her on Christmas 2004, 3 months before she disappeared. The police asked about it during the investigation. They said if they found a body wearing it, they'd know it was her, but she wasn't a body. She was alive, tanned, wearing my gift as if the last 19 years hadn't existed. Richard met Helena only 3 times, our engagement in 1992, our wedding in 1993. Lucas's baptism in 1996, maybe 10 hours total. Why would Richard have a photo of her? That's when I noticed the background. Snow-covered mountains, a stone fireplace, and in the corner a crystal ashtray, the same one Richard bought in Aspen in 2010. He said it was a gift for a client, but that ashtray was in Helena's house, which meant Helena was in Aspen, which meant Richard knew exactly where my sister was, for 19 years. I should have called Richard immediately. But I sat in his chair for 40 minutes, trying to find an explanation that wouldn't destroy my life. I didn't find one, so I started looking for proof. Started looking. Behind the 3rd box of Cohibas was a keyring with 6 small keys. I knew my husband better than he thought. The 4th drawer had a built-in safe. I tried our anniversary, Richard's birthday, our children's birthdays. Nothing. Then I tried March 14th, 2005, the day Helena disappeared. The safe opened. Inside were 3 items. A stack of photos, all of Helena, some with a teenage girl with dark hair and green eyes, a passport in the name of Helena Carter, and a birth certificate. Sophie, Helena Carter, born June 7th, 2006. Mother, Helena Morrow. Carter, father, Richard Thomas. Carter, I read it 5 times before understanding. Richard had a daughter with my sister, an 18-year-old daughter born 15 months after Helena's disappearance. My sister didn't disappear. She ran away with my husband. She built a parallel family while I lived in Greenwich raising 3 children who didn't know they had a half-sister. I heard a sound like a wounded animal. It took seconds to realize it was coming from me. Lucas called at 7. I was still on the floor, photos scattered around me. "Mom?" Emma said she tried calling 3 times. "I'm fine, just lost track of time." I almost told him, but something stopped me. Once I said those words, there'd be no going back. Richard came home at 10:30. He kissed my forehead like every night for 30 years. The meeting ran longer than expected. I looked at the man I'd slept with for 3 decades, the man who promised to love me until death. What city was the conference in? He didn't hesitate. Boston. He smiled and left toward his office. That smile I used to find charming now made me nauseous. I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. Not until I had all the proof. Not until I understood who knew and how long my life had been a farce. At 3 in the morning, I went to Lucas's old room. In a cardboard box I hadn't opened in years were my memories of Helena. A photo of her holding baby Lucas, with that look of terror I always interpreted as fear of dropping him. Now I saw differently. A woman already in love with my husband, holding the child of the man she desired. When did it start? At my wedding? At Lucas's baptism? Or earlier, when Helena was 16 and Richard was 24, I ran to the bathroom and vomited. At 9, I went back to Richard's office for financial records. His computer password was August 15th, 1999, the company's first $1 million contract. Richard was never creative. He had a folder called Aspen with 347 emails, most about an investment property. But some were to L.M. Carter. Helena Morrow. Carter. Sophie's dress arrived. She looks like you at 18. Graduation is on the 15th. I'll say I have a conference in Boston. I miss you. Back Friday. Each email was a stab wound. Then I opened the bank statements. Richard had a separate account under Carter Family Holdings LLC. Every month since 2006, 2 transfers, $35,000 to Aspen and $8,000 to Bridgeport, where my mother lives. $8,000 a month for 19 years, when $728,000. My mother received almost $2 million to keep quiet. At 11:30, I was at my mother's door. "Olivia, what are you doing here?" Dorothy seemed genuinely surprised. The same mother who raised me cried at my wedding. "Mom, I know about Helena." Her face didn't change. "I know she's alive, lives in Aspen, and you've been receiving $8,000 monthly from Richard for 19 years. Silence. The clock ticked. "Aren't you going to deny it?" She sighed. A tired sigh, as if she'd waited 2 decades for this. "I wanted to tell you, all these years, but you didn't. Richard said if I told, he'd make Helena disappear for real. So you chose her, let me suffer for 19 years. I chose to protect both my daughters. No, you chose your favorite, and accepted money to destroy the other." Dorothy started crying, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. Only an immense emptiness where love used to be. "Don't contact me, Mom." I left without looking back. In the car, I finally cried. For Helena, for Dorothy, for Richard, and for myself. The Olivia who woke up yesterday, thinking she had a life and discovered she only had a stage set, a play where everyone knew the script except her. I had a decision to make: confront Richard now or wait, gather more evidence. Understand the full extent. I chose to wait. Richard Carter was a man who never lost. He manipulated judges, bought lawyers, destroyed enemies. If I was going to face him, I needed to be certain I'd win. And to beat him, I needed something unexpected. I needed Helena's help. That night, I went back to his office. Found the address in 5 minutes. 847 Pine Creek Road, Aspen, Colorado. The house where my sister lived for 19 years, where my niece grew up. I wrote it on paper and tucked it in my bra, the only place Richard would never look. Tomorrow, I'd book a flight to Colorado. See my sister for the first time in 19 years, find out whose side she was on. But one question circled my mind. Did Helena go willingly, or did Richard take her like he took everything else? Slowly, methodically, without me noticing until too late, I opened my phone calendar. December 15th, 12 days away. Sophie's graduation, the Boston conference. I added my own note, Aspen. 12 days, then I'd be face to face with my sister, and God help anyone who tried to stop me. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Helena's face in that photograph, smiling as if the last 19 years had been a vacation instead of my personal hell. At 6 a.m, I booked a flight to Aspen. December 14th, 1 day before Sophie's graduation, round trip, first class, charged to the credit card Richard gave me. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd pay for my trip to destroy him. But before Aspen, I needed answers. My mother had confessed to receiving money, but I knew Dorothy Morrow. She was hiding something more. I arrived at her house at 10 without calling first. The element of surprise had worked yesterday. Maybe it would work again. Dorothy opened the door in her bathrobe, eyes swollen from crying. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Olivia, I didn't expect—" "We need to talk, really talk this time." She let me in without protest. The house still smelled of mothballs and regret. I sat on the same couch as yesterday. Shh. Dorothy remained standing, wringing her hands like she used to do when Dad was angry. "I told you everything," she said. "No, you didn't. You told me Richard threatened to make Helena disappear if you talked, but that doesn't explain why Helena left in the first place, or how Richard even knew her well enough to—" I couldn't finish the sentence. Dorothy's face crumbled. not the theatrical crying from yesterday. Something deeper, something broken. "Sit down, Mom." She sat, slowly, like her bones ached. "It started before your wedding," she whispered. The room tilted. Helena was 17. Richard was 25. He came to pick you up for a date, and you weren't ready. Helena was in the garden. He talked to her for 20 minutes. "That doesn't mean—" "I saw them, Olivia, 2 months later. In his car, parked behind the church. Helena was 18 by then, but barely. 18. Richard was 26, and 2 months later he proposed to me. You knew. Before my wedding, you knew he was involved with Helena, and you let me marry him anyway." Dorothy's hands trembled. "I confronted him. He said it was over. A mistake. He loved you. Helena was just—" She stopped. Helena was just what? Young, confused. She had a crush, and he made a mistake. A mistake. The word tasted like poison. He was sleeping with my teenage sister while dating me, and you called it a mistake. "I thought it was over," he promised. "And Helena, she seemed fine. She was your maid of honor, for God's sake. She smiled through the whole wedding." I remembered that smile now. The way Helena wouldn't look at me directly. The way she left the reception early, claiming a headache. When did it start again? Dorothy wiped her eyes. After Lucas was born, Helena changed, became distant. Then in 2005, she came to me, crying, pregnant, said it was Richard's. And you helped her disappear. Richard came that same week, said he'd take care of everything, pay for the baby. But I had to promise never to tell you. She looked at me with watery eyes. He said if I talked, Helena would have an accident. I believed him. I stood up. The walls were closing in. You chose money over me. I chose keeping Helena alive. No, you got paid $8,000 a month for 19 years. You could have warned me anonymously, left a note, anything, but you took his money and watched me suffer. Dorothy's crying turned to sobs. I walked toward the door. "There's something else," she said. I stopped, hand on the doorknob. "The Christmas visits. I didn't just know Helena was alive. I visited her. Every year. Something inside me shattered. Every Christmas, while I sat alone because Richard had work trips. He told me you'd never forgive me. You lost me anyway, Mom, 19 years ago. I just didn't know it until now." I left without saying goodbye. The call from Lucas came at noon. "Mom, I need to talk to you. Can you come to the office?" Richard's office, Carter Recovery Center's headquarters in Stamford. I hadn't been there in years. "What's this about?" "Just come, please." Something in his voice made my stomach clench. Lucas knew something, or Richard had told him something. Either way, I needed to face it. The building was glass and steel, 23 floors of my husband's empire. Lucas met me on the top floor, my son. 28 years old, dark curly hair, green eyes. The same green eyes as Helena. I'd never noticed that before. Now I couldn't unsee it. He led me to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows. The air conditioning was too cold. "Dad called me this morning," he said, closing the door. "He's worried about you." "Worried about me?" "He said you've been acting strange, going through his office, asking odd questions." Lucas sat across from me, hands folded on the table. "He thinks you might be having some kind of episode." Episode. The word Richard used when he wanted to dismiss someone's valid concerns as mental instability. I'd heard him use it on business rivals, on former employees, on anyone who threatened him. "I'm perfectly fine, Lucas. Are you? Because Dad mentioned you might need to spend some time at Willowbrook. Willowbrook, one of Richard's rehabilitation facilities. The one for executive burnout. Which really meant wealthy people whose families wanted them locked away. Your father wants to commit me. Not commit, just arrest. A few weeks to recover from whatever stress you're under." I looked at my son, the boy I raised, nursed, sacrificed for, the boy who was now sitting across from me, calmly suggesting his father lock me in a psychiatric facility. "Did your father tell you why I was in his office?" Lucas shifted. "He said you were looking through his things. Paranoid behavior." "I found a photograph, Lucas, of my sister, Helena, who supposedly disappeared 19 years ago. His face didn't change. Not surprise, not confusion, just careful blankness." I also found a birth certificate for Sophie Helena Carter, born 2006. Father, Richard Thomas Carter. Still nothing. Did you know? The question came out sharper than intended. Mom, did you know your father has another family in Aspen? Lucas stood up, walked to the window, his back to me. I found out 2 years ago, he said quietly. When I started working here, I saw the transfers, the Aspen property. I asked Dad about it. And he told you. He explained the situation. It's complicated. Complicated, I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Your father has been sleeping with my sister for over 30 years. They have a daughter your age. My mother knew the whole time, and you've known for 2 years and said nothing. Lucas turned. What was I supposed to say? Hey, Mom, Dad has a secret family? It would have destroyed you. It is destroying me, right now. And you— I had to stop, breathe, keep control. You chose him, like everyone else. I didn't choose anyone. I chose to protect you. You chose your career, your corner office, your $380,000 salary. I stood up. Do Emma and Grace know? No. God, no. They'd never keep it secret. But you could. My son, my firstborn. I walked toward the door. Tell your father I'm not going to Willowbrook, and tell him I'm not going to be quiet anymore. Mom, wait. I'm flying to Aspen on Saturday to see Helena, to meet Sophie. You can tell Richard that too. I opened the door. He'll destroy you, Lucas said. He has lawyers, connections, money. You don't have anything. I turned back to look at my son, the stranger wearing my son's face. I have the truth, and I have nothing left to lose. I drove home in a daze. My son had known for 2 years and chose to protect Richard. The house felt different, same marble floors, same chandeliers. But now I saw it for what it was, a cage, a beautiful, expensive cage. Richard's car wasn't in the garage. I went to my closet and pulled out a suitcase, started packing for Colorado. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Mom, are you okay? Lucas said you seemed upset at the office. Then Grace. What's going on? Lucas is being weird. And finally, a text from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Carter, this is Dr. Patterson from Willowbrook. Your husband has scheduled an evaluation for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Please confirm. Richard wasn't wasting time. I blocked the number and kept packing. At 8 that evening, Richard came home. I was in the kitchen, drinking wine. My 3rd glass. The suitcase was hidden in my car. Olivia. He kissed my cheek. Lucas told me about your conversation. I'm sure he did. I'm worried about you. These delusions about Helena. They're not delusions. I saw the photos, the birth certificate, the bank transfers. Richard poured himself a whiskey. Calm, controlled. The same face he wore in boardrooms when destroying competitors. What exactly do you think you found? The truth. 19 years of truth. He sipped his drink. Helena had a mental breakdown in 2005. She wanted to disappear, start fresh. I helped her, as a favor to your family. A favor that included getting her pregnant? Sophie isn't mine. Her birth certificate says otherwise. Birth certificates can be adjusted. Helena needed help. I provided it, that's all. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that for a moment I almost believed it. Almost. I'm going to Aspen, Richard. No, you're not. You can't stop me. He set down his glass, walked toward me slowly. Olivia, listen carefully. If you go to Aspen, if you contact Helena, if you do anything to disrupt my family— Your family? What about this family? I will have you committed to Willowbrook, involuntarily. I have 3 doctors ready to sign the papers. My lawyers are drafting a conservatorship as we speak. I stared at him. The man I'd loved for 30 years, the man I'd built a life with, the man who was now threatening to lock me away like an inconvenient problem. You can't do that. I own those facilities, Olivia. I own those doctors. I own this house, these cars, these bank accounts. Everything you have comes from me. He leaned closer, and I can take it all away. The threat hung between us like smoke. Is that what you did to Helena? Threatened her until she complied? Something flickered in his eyes, just for a second. Helena made her choice. Now you need to make yours. He picked up his whiskey and walked out of the kitchen. I stood there, alone, my hands shaking around my wine glass. Saturday, I had 4 days to get to Aspen before Richard found a way to stop me. 4 days to find out the truth. 4 days to decide if my marriage was worth saving or worth destroying. The first card stopped working on Thursday morning. I was at the gas station, 3 miles from home, when the attendant handed back my Amex with an apologetic smile. "Declined, ma'am." I tried the Visa, declined, the MasterCard, declined. Richard wasn't bluffing. I drove home on a quarter tank, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When I walked through the front door, Maria, our housekeeper of 15 years, was waiting in the foyer with tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Carter, I'm so sorry. Mr. Carter called this morning. He said I shouldn't come any more." "What?" "He said you're not well, that you need rest, that having staff around might agitate you." She clutched her purse. "He paid me 3 months of severance, told me not to contact you." I watched Maria walk to her car. Another piece of my life stripped away, and the house had never felt so empty. By noon, I had discovered the full extent of Richard's punishment. The joint checking account frozen, the savings account transferred to an account I couldn't access. My personal credit cards cancelled. The car in my name, the Mercedes I'd driven for 6 years, had been reported stolen. Richard's assistant called to inform me, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Mr. Carter suggests you use the guest car in the garage, the Honda. He's left $500 in cash in the kitchen drawer for essentials." $500, after 30 years of marriage to a billionaire, had been reduced to $500 and a 10-year-old Honda. I laughed. It was either that or scream. Emma called at 2. "Mom, what's going on?" "Dad says you're having a breakdown. He wants us to come for an intervention this weekend." "An intervention?" "He says you've been making wild accusations, that you broke into his office, that you're paranoid and delusional." Her voice cracked. "Mom, are you okay? Really?" I wanted to tell her everything, about Helena, about Sophie, about the 19 years of lies, but something stopped me. If I told Emma now, over the phone, she'd either think I was crazy, confirming Richard's story, or she'd confront her father and he'd find a way to spin it. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Your father and I are having some disagreements." "Disagreements?" "Dad's talking about doctors and facilities. That doesn't sound like a disagreement." "Don't believe everything your father tells you. I'll explain soon. I promise." After I hung up, I sat in the silent kitchen and stared at the roses through the window. The roses I'd planted, the garden I'd tended, the life I'd built. All of it was Richard's. Every brick, every flower, every memory. I owned nothing. The realization hit me slowly, like drowning in cold water. I had no money, no credit, no car I could legally drive without risking arrest, no allies. Lucas had chosen Richard, my mother had betrayed me, and I couldn't burden Emma and Grace with this yet. I was trapped in a $12 million prison. For the first time in my life, I understood what Richard had done to Helena. Not with violence, not with chains, with money, with control, with the slow, systematic removal of every option until compliance was the only path left. Is this how she felt in 2005? Is this why she ran? Or did she run towards something rather than away? I spent Thursday afternoon in the guest room that used to be Lucas's, the room where I'd found the box of Helena's memories. I spread the old photos across the bed and studied them like evidence. Helena at 16, laughing at my graduation party. Helena at 17, standing awkwardly beside Richard at our engagement dinner. Helena at 18, holding baby Lucas with that strange look in her eyes. I'd always thought it was fear. Now I knew it was something else entirely. Love, guilt, longing. She was holding the child of the man she loved, the man who belonged to her sister. I picked up a photo I'd never examined closely before. Christmas, 1995, at my mother's house. I was 8 months pregnant, exhausted, sitting on the couch. Richard was standing by the tree with a glass of eggnog, and Helena was watching him from across the room. The look on her face, I recognized it now. The same look I probably had when I first fell in love with him. That desperate, consuming need. She never stopped loving him. Even after he married me, even after Lucas was born, she carried that love, like a wound for years, until finally. Until finally, he gave her what she wanted. A child, a home, a life, just not the life she deserved. At 6 o'clock, I made a decision. I couldn't fight Richard with money. I didn't have any. I couldn't fight him with lawyers. I couldn't afford them. I couldn't fight him with family. They'd all chosen sides, but I could fight him with patience. Richard expected me to crumble, to beg, to accept his terms, silence in exchange for comfort. That's what he was used to. People who could be bought, threatened, controlled. He didn't know the woman I'd become in the last 4 days. I went to the kitchen and found the $500 in the drawer. I counted it twice. Then I went to my closet and collected every piece of jewelry I owned, gifts from Richard over 30 years. Diamond earrings, pearl necklaces, a ruby bracelet, my anniversary rings. I didn't know what they were worth, probably hundreds of thousands. And they were legally mine, gifts, not marital property. Tomorrow, I would find a pawn shop, get enough cash for a plane ticket and a week in Aspen. Richard couldn't cancel jewelry. That night, I slept in the guest room, the bed where Helena had slept before she disappeared. I lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, and thought about the woman my sister had become. For 19 years, I'd mourned her, searched for her, blamed myself for not being a better sister, for not seeing the signs, for not saving her. But Helena hadn't needed saving. She'd made a choice, a terrible, selfish choice that shattered my life, but a choice nonetheless. The question wasn't whether I could forgive her. The question was whether she deserved forgiveness. And I wouldn't know the answer until I looked her in the eyes. Friday morning, I woke to pounding on the front door. I pulled on a robe and went downstairs. Through the window, I saw a white van with Willowbrook Recovery Center on the side. 2 men in scrubs stood on my porch. Behind them, Dr. Patterson, the man who'd texted me, held a clipboard. "Mrs. Carter?" he called through the door. "We're here for your evaluation." I didn't answer. I backed away from the window, heart racing. "Mrs. Carter, your husband has filed a petition for emergency psychiatric hold. We have legal authority to enter." Legal authority, Richard's authority. Doctors he owned, facilities he controlled, paperwork he'd fabricated. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed my purse. The jewelry was inside, along with the $500. Then I went out the back door, through the garden, to the detached garage where the Honda was parked. The keys were in the ignition. Richard had left them there, probably assuming I wouldn't run. He was wrong. I drove for 2 hours, without direction. Just drove. Away from Greenwich, away from Willowbrook, away from the life that was trying to swallow me whole. When I finally stopped, I was in a parking lot outside a diner in Danbury. My hands were still shaking. I went inside, ordered coffee, and sat in a booth by the window. The jewelry was heavy in my purse, the weight of 30 years. I took out my phone. No calls from Richard. No calls from Lucas. Either they didn't know I'd run, or they were waiting to see what I'd do next. I had 2 choices. I could go back, accept Richard's terms, pretend the last 5 days hadn't happened, live out my life in that beautiful cage, comfortable and silent and dead inside, or I could keep running. Go to Aspen, find Helena, blow up everything. My finger hovered over the phone. Then I dialed Emma. "Mom, where are you? Dad's going crazy. He says you ran away from some doctors." "I need you to listen carefully," I said. "I'm not crazy. I'm not having a breakdown. Your father is trying to control me because I found out something he's hidden for 19 years. Silence on the other end. "What did you find?" "I can't tell you yet, not over the phone, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" More silence, then, "Yes." "I need you to book me a flight to Aspen. Use your credit card. Your father can't track that. Flight leaving tomorrow, as early as possible. Can you do that?" "Aspen? Why Aspen?" "I'll explain everything when I get back, I promise." Emma paused. "Mom, you're scaring me." "I know, sweetheart, I'm scared too, but this is something I have to do." Another pause, then, "Okay, I'll book the flight, but you have to promise me. Whatever this is, you'll be careful. I promise." I hung up and stared out the window at the gray December sky. Tomorrow. Tomorrow I would be in Aspen. Tomorrow I would finally know the truth. I spent Friday night in a motel off I-84, $47 a night, paid in cash. The mattress was lumpy, The heater rattled, and the walls smelled like cigarette smoke. It was the best sleep I'd had in years. Alone in that dingy room, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Freedom. Not the comfortable freedom of wealth, but the raw, terrifying freedom of having nothing to lose. Richard thought he'd stripped everything from me, but he'd forgotten the one thing I still had. Myself. At midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know you're coming. We need to talk. Alone. 847 Pine Creek Road. Sunday, 10 a.m. Don't bring anyone. No signature, but I knew who it was from. Helena, my sister, was waiting for me. And in 36 hours, I would finally understand why she left. The flight to Aspen took 4 hours with a layover in Denver. I spent most of it staring out the window, watching America scroll beneath me like a map of my broken life. Emma had booked me first class. When I protested, she said, "Mum, whatever's happening, you deserve to be comfortable." I almost cried. At least one of my children still loved me unconditionally. I landed at Aspen Pitkin County Airport at 3 p.m. Saturday. The mountains rose around me like cathedral walls, snow-capped and indifferent to human suffering. I rented a car with cash from the pawned jewelry, $12,000, less than I expected, but enough, and drove to a small hotel on the edge of town. Tomorrow I would see Helena. Tonight I would prepare. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat by the window and watched the snow fall, thinking about what I would say to the sister who stole my husband. No, that wasn't fair. Richard wasn't stolen. He was never mine to begin with. The truth I'd been avoiding finally settled in my chest. Richard chose Helena before he chose me. Maybe he married me for appearances. The older sister, the stable one, the one who would give him legitimate children and a respectable home. But he loved Helena. He always loved Helena. I was the detour. She was the destination. Sunday morning, I drove to 847 Pine Creek Road. The house was exactly like the photo. Glass and wood, modern and warm, nestled among pine trees with a view of the mountains. Smoke rose from the chimney. A Tesla sat in the driveway. 19 years. My sister had lived here for 19 years while I searched for her body. I parked behind the Tesla and sat for a moment, gathering courage. Then I walked to the front door and knocked. Helena opened it. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. We just stared at each other, two sisters separated by 19 years and 1,000 lies. She looked older than the photo, thinner. There were dark circles under her green eyes, and her blonde hair had more gray than I remembered, but it was her, my little sister, alive. "Olivia," her voice cracked. "You came." "Did you think I wouldn't?" She stepped aside. "Come in, please." The inside of the house was beautiful. Hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, art on the walls. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace. On the mantel, photos of Sophie at various ages, baby, toddler, child, teenager, young woman. "She's not here," Helena said, following my gaze. "I sent her to a friend's house. I thought we should talk alone first." I turned to face her. "Yes, we should." Helena gestured to the couch. I sat. She sat across from me, hands folded in her lap, like a schoolgirl awaiting punishment. "I don't know where to start," she said. "How about the beginning? How about the part where you slept with my fiancé when you were 17? Helena flinched. "Mom told you." "Mom told me a lot of things, but I want to hear it from you." She took a deep breath. "It wasn't. I didn't plan it. Richard was so charming, so attentive. He made me feel special. I was 17 and stupid, and I thought I was in love." "You were 17. He was 25. That's not love, that's predation. I know that now. I didn't know it then." She wiped her eyes. "When he proposed to you, I thought it was over. I thought I could move on, but I couldn't. Every time I saw him, every family dinner, every holiday, I couldn't stop loving him." "So you kept sleeping with him through my entire marriage?" "No, it stopped after your wedding. For years it stopped. But then Lucas was born, and something broke inside me. Seeing you with a baby, with his baby, I couldn't handle it." "So you started again?" "He started it. He came to me, said he'd made a mistake marrying you, said I was the one he really wanted." She laughed bitterly. And I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. I let the silence stretch between us. Outside, snow continued to fall. Why did you disappear? I finally asked. Why not just be honest? Helena stood and walked to the window, her back to me. I didn't choose to disappear, Olivia. I was going to tell you everything. I wrote you a letter, a long letter explaining everything, apologizing, begging for forgiveness. I was going to leave it at your house and then go somewhere far away to have the baby alone. What happened? Richard intercepted the letter. She turned to face me. He came to Mom's house the day before I planned to leave. He'd found the letter in my bag. He was furious. He said if I told you, he'd deny everything. He'd call me a liar, a mentally unstable homewrecker. He said no one would believe me over him. You could have told me anyway. He threatened more than that. Helena's voice dropped. He said if I told you, he'd make sure I never saw my baby. He had lawyers, money, power. He said he'd prove I was unfit, take the child and destroy me. I thought of Willowbrook, of the doctors ready to sign papers, of Richard's calm voice saying I can take it all away. So you ran. He gave me a choice, disappear quietly, let him set me up somewhere comfortable, raise Sophie with his financial support, or fight him and lose everything. She sat back down, tears streaming. I chose my daughter. I chose the only option that let me keep her. The letter, I said. Do you still have it? Helena nodded. She went to a desk in the corner and pulled out a yellowed envelope, handed it to me. I recognized her handwriting on the front. Olivia, just my name, nothing else. I opened it and read. Dear Olivia, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not dead. Please don't think that. Just gone somewhere you won't find me. I need to tell you something that will hurt you. Something I should have told you years ago. I've been in love with Richard since I was 17, and he's been in love with me. I know you won't believe that at first. Richard is so good at pretending. But it's true. He chose you because you were safe, respectable, the kind of wife a man like him is supposed to have. But he chose me because he couldn't help himself. I'm pregnant, Olivia, with Richard's child. I found out 3 weeks ago. I thought about getting rid of it, but I can't. This baby is the only thing in my life that's truly mine. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for loving him. I'm sorry for not being strong enough to stop. I'm sorry for being the kind of sister who destroys her own family. Please, don't hate me forever, and please, don't blame yourself. None of this is your fault. It's mine and Richard's. We did this, not you. I love you. I always have. Helena, I set down the letter. My hands were shaking. He kept this from me for 19 years. He kept everything from you, from both of us. Helena leaned forward. Olivia, Richard told me things, terrible things about you. He said you hated me, that you blamed me for Dad's death, that you told Mom you wished I'd never been born. What? I never said any of that. I know that now. But then, he was so convincing. He said you'd never forgive me, that you'd already called me dead to you. He made me believe that even if I reached out, you'd reject me. The manipulation was so complete, so elegant. Richard hadn't just stolen Helena, he'd made each of us believe the other was the enemy. He played us against each other, I said, for 19 years, and we let him. We talked for 3 more hours. Helena told me about Sophie. Smart, kind, about to graduate high school, accepted to Stanford. She told me about the life Richard had built for them, comfortable but controlled, every expense monitored, every trip approved. He visits once a month, Helena said. Sometimes twice. He pays for everything, but he owns everything too. This house, the car, Sophie's college fund, it's all in his name. If I ever tried to leave, I'd have nothing. Just like me, just like you. I stood and walked to the fireplace, looked at the photos of Sophie, my niece, Richard's other daughter. He's trying to have me committed, I said. Willowbrook, he has doctors ready to sign the papers. Helena nodded slowly. He threatened me with the same thing in 2007 when I wanted to come back, to tell you the truth. He said he'd have me declared unfit, take Sophie, put me somewhere I'd never get out. What stopped you? Sophie had just turned 1. I couldn't risk losing her. Helena came to stand beside me. But Sophie's 18 now. She's an adult. He can't use her against me anymore. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm tired, Olivia. Tired of hiding, tired of pretending, tired of being grateful to the man who destroyed both our lives. She took my hand. I'm saying if you want to fight Richard, I'll fight with you. That night, I stayed at Helena's house. We sat by the fire and planned. Helena had documents, bank statements, emails, photos. 19 years of evidence that Richard had maintained a secret family. I had the birth certificate, the transfer records, the proof of payments to our mother. Together, we had enough to destroy him. What about Lucas? Helena asked. He knows about Sophie. He's been protecting Richard. Lucas made his choice, but Emma and Grace don't know yet. They'll believe me. And Sophie, what do I tell her? I thought about it. The truth, that her father built his empire on lies, and it's time for those lies to end. Helena nodded. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out something small and silver. The crescent moon necklace, the one I gave her in 2004. I never stopped wearing it, she said, even when Richard told me to throw it away. It was the only piece of you I had left. I took the necklace, held it in my palm. 20 years of memories in an ounce of silver. Keep it, I said, handing it back. But this time wear it for yourself. Not for him, not for me, for you. Helena smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her in 19 years. Tomorrow, Sophie would come home. I would meet my niece. And then together, we would bring Richard Carter down. Sophie came home, Monday morning. I watched from the kitchen window as she parked her Jeep and walked toward the house. 18 years old, dark auburn hair, green eyes, the Morrow eyes. She looked like Helena at that age, but with Richard's confident stride, my niece, my husband's daughter, the girl who'd grown up not knowing I existed. Helena met her at the door. I heard their voices. Soft, then rising, then soft again. 10 minutes later, they walked into the kitchen together. Sophie stared at me like I was a ghost. So you're Aunt Olivia, she said, not a question. Yes. Mom says Dad lied to both of you. For my whole life. That's true. Sophie sat down at the table. Her hands were trembling, but her voice stayed steady. I always knew something was wrong. Dad only visited once a month. He never let me come to Connecticut. He never talked about his other family, except to say you were troubled. Troubled? He said you had mental health issues, that you tried to hurt Mom once, years ago. That's why she had to leave. Sophie's jaw tightened. He lied about everything, didn't he? Everything. She looked at Helena. Why didn't you tell me? I was afraid, Helena said. Afraid of what he'd do. Afraid of losing you. You almost lost me anyway. I'm leaving for Stanford in August. Were you ever going to tell me the truth? Helena didn't answer. She didn't have to. Sophie turned back to me. What happens now? I pulled out a chair and sat across from her. Now we decide what kind of family we want to be, and what to do about your father. We spent 2 days planning. Helena gathered her documents. I organized mine. Sophie, once she recovered from the shock, proved surprisingly useful. She knew Richard's schedule, his habits, his weaknesses. He's coming for my graduation Thursday, she said. He always stays at the St. Regis, alone. Does he know I'm here? I asked. I don't think so. He texted me yesterday asking about Mom. Nothing about you. Helena checked her phone. He sent me a message too. Looking forward to Thursday. Our girl is all grown up. Like everything is normal. Let him think that, I said. Until Thursday. Richard arrived in Aspen Wednesday night. I know, because Lucas texted me. The first contact since our confrontation. Dad's in Aspen. He knows you're there. He's furious. I didn't respond. An hour later, another text. Mom, please, come home. We can work this out. I typed back, we'll work it out Thursday, after Sophie's graduation, all of us. Lucas didn't reply. Thursday morning was cold and clear. Sophie's graduation ceremony was at 10 in the auditorium of Aspen High School. Helena and I arrived early, sat in the back. Richard was in the front row, alone, wearing a $3,000 suit and the smile of a proud father. He didn't see us. Not yet. The ceremony was beautiful. Sophie gave a speech about resilience, about family, about the lies we tell ourselves to survive. I wondered if Richard understood she was talking about him. Afterward, the graduates gathered with their families on the lawn. I watched Richard hug Sophie, kiss Helena's cheek, pose for photos like the perfect patriarch. Then Sophie pointed toward us. Richard turned. Saw me. His smile didn't falter, but something shifted behind his eyes. That calculating look I'd seen 1,000 times in boardrooms. The predator assessing a threat. He walked over slowly, Helena and Sophie following. Olivia, he said. What a surprise. Is it? I assumed after your little episode you'd be resting somewhere quiet. I was. Then I found my sister. Richard glanced at Helena. A warning look. She didn't flinch. Whatever Helena told you, he said, I'm sure it was emotional and confused. She's always been fragile. I read the letter, Richard, the one you intercepted in 2005. For the first time I saw genuine fear cross his face. Just a flash. Then gone. I don't know what you're talking about. The letter where Helena apologized for falling in love with you. The letter where she told me she was pregnant. The letter you stole so you could keep us both under control for 19 years. Other families were starting to notice. Heads turning, whispers. This isn't the place, Richard said quietly. You're right. Let's go somewhere private. The four of us need to talk. We drove to Helena's house in separate cars. Richard, Helena, Sophie, and me, a family of strangers. In the living room, we sat in a circle like enemies at a peace negotiation. Richard took the armchair by the fireplace, the power position. Old habits. Whatever you think you know, he began. I know everything. I pulled out the folder I'd prepared. Bank records showing $35,000 monthly transfers to Helena for 19 years. Birth certificate naming you as Sophie's father. Emails to your Aspen investment property. And the $17 million you paid my mother to keep her mouth shut. Richard didn't look at the documents. He looked at me. What do you want, Olivia? The truth would be nice, but I'll settle for a divorce. 50% of everything, no contest. He laughed, actually laughed. 50%? You won't get 50 cents. I have prenuptial agreements, offshore accounts, trusts you don't even know exist. I also have these documents and Helena's testimony. And I'm guessing when the Board of Carter Recovery Centers sees proof that their CEO maintained a secret family for 2 decades, they might have questions. The laugh died. You wouldn't I? Richard leaned forward. Listen to me carefully, Olivia. If you try to destroy me, I will bury you. I'll take the house, the cars, every penny. I'll have you committed, permanently this time. And I'll make sure Emma and Grace believe you're a delusional, bitter woman who couldn't accept that her marriage failed. What about Lucas? Sophie asked suddenly. We all turned to her. Your son, she continued. My half-brother. Does he know how you've been using him? Richard's expression flickered. Lucas is loyal. Lucas is a pawn. Sophie stood up. Just like Mom, just like Aunt Olivia, just like me. She looked at her father with something like pity. I read the will, Dad, the one you think is hidden in your safe. The one that leaves everything to me and cuts out. Lucas completely, unless he helps you control Aunt Olivia. The room went silent. You read my will? Richard's voice was ice. I've been reading your documents for months. Mom's too scared to look, but I'm not. Sophie walked to the window. You built your whole life on controlling people, making them dependent, making them afraid, but you forgot something. What's that? I'm 18. Now I don't need your money. I have a scholarship to Stanford, and I have the emails where you told Mom you'd take me away if she ever disobeyed. She turned back to face him. That's coercion, Dad, maybe even extortion. I don't think the board would like that either. Richard sat very still for a long moment. I could almost see him calculating, adjusting, looking for leverage. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Something changed in his face. Excuse me, he said and stepped outside. Through the window I watched him pace the driveway, phone pressed to his ear. His gestures grew sharp, angry, then defeated. When he came back inside, he looked 10 years older. That was Lucas, he said. He's at the house in Greenwich. He found the safe open. He read the will. Helena and I exchanged glances. He knows you were going to cut him out, I said. He knows everything now. Richard slumped into the chair. He's talking to Emma and Grace, showing them the documents. The empire was crumbling, not with a dramatic explosion, but with a slow, inevitable collapse, one truth at a time. Lucas asked me something, Richard continued. He asked if I ever loved any of you, or if you were all just pieces on a board. What did you tell him? Richard didn't answer. He just stared at the fire, watching the flames consume the wood. I built everything, he finally said. The company, the houses, the family, both families. I gave everyone everything they needed. Except honesty, Helena said quietly. Except choice, I added. Except love, Sophie finished. Richard looked at his daughter, his legitimate daughter, the child he'd hidden for 18 years. I do love you, he said, all of you, in my own way. Your way isn't enough, Dad. Sophie sat back down. It never was. My phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know about the will. I didn't know he was using me too. I thought I was protecting you. Then another. Emma and Grace are here. We want to talk, all of us. When you come home. I showed Helena the messages. What will you do? She asked. I looked at Richard. Diminished now, his power draining away like water through cupped hands. Then at Helena, my sister, who'd survived 19 years of golden captivity. Then at Sophie, the niece I'd just met, who had more courage than all of us combined. I'm going home, I said, to my children, my real family. And Richard? I stood up and walked to the door. Paused with my hand on the handle. Richard can do whatever he wants. He's very good at that. I looked back at him one last time. But if he comes after me, after any of us, those documents go to every board member, every journalist, and every lawyer in Connecticut. Richard said nothing. I opened the door. Olivia, he called. I waited. I never meant to hurt you. I almost laughed, almost cried. Instead, I just nodded. I know, Richard, that's the saddest part. You never even thought about whether you were hurting me. I simply didn't matter enough. I walked out into the cold Colorado morning. Behind me, I heard Sophie say, I'll drive Aunt Olivia to the airport. We have a lot to talk about. The door closed on Richard and Helena, two people bound together by secrets, now drowning in their exposure. My flight home left in 4 hours, and for the first time in 30 years I was flying towards something instead of running away. The house in Greenwich looked different when I returned. Same marble floors, same crystal chandeliers, same rose garden through the windows, but smaller, somehow. Like a dollhouse I'd outgrown. Lucas met me at the door. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his jaw, his expensive suit wrinkled. Mom, his voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I looked at my son, the boy I'd nursed, raised, loved unconditionally for 28 years, the boy who'd chosen his father over me, the boy who was now standing in front of me, broken. I know, I said. We'll talk inside. Emma and Grace were waiting in the living room. When they saw me, both rushed forward, wrapping me in a hug that felt like coming home. We didn't know, Emma said, crying. We didn't know any of it. Lucas showed us everything, Grace added. The bank records, the emails, Sophie's birth certificate. She pulled back, her eyes red. How could Dad do this? How could he lie for so long? Because lying was easier than loving, I said. For him, at least. We sat together for hours. I told them everything. Helena, Sophie, the intercepted letter, the 19 years of manipulation. I told them about Dorothy's betrayal, about the money that bought her silence. I told them about Willowbrook, about Richard's threats, about the moment I decided to stop being afraid. Lucas listened in silence, his head bowed. I should have known, he finally said. I saw the transfers. I asked Dad about them, and he made it sound so reasonable. A property investment, a charitable foundation. I wanted to believe him. We all wanted to believe him, Emma said. That's how he worked. No. Lucas shook his head. You and Grace weren't involved in the company. I was. I had access to everything, and I chose not to look too closely, because looking meant losing my job, my salary, my future. He looked at me. I chose money over my own mother. You chose what he trained you to choose, I said. Richard spent your whole life teaching you that loyalty meant obedience, that family meant hierarchy. You didn't know any different. That's not an excuse. No, it's not. but it's a place to start. The board meeting was scheduled for Monday. Richard had called an emergency session to address family matters affecting company leadership. He thought he was still in control. He thought he could spin the story, manage the narrative, turn himself into the victim. He didn't know what was coming. I'd spent Sunday night with Emma preparing the documents, every bank transfer, every email, every piece of evidence that showed Richard Carter had used company resources to maintain a secret family for 19 years. Not illegal, necessarily, but devastating to a man whose brand was built on trust and integrity. Lucas provided the final piece, the internal communications where Richard discussed using Willowbrook facilities to manage difficult family members, board members, ex-wives, anyone who threatened his control. He's been doing this for years, Lucas said, not just to you, to anyone who got in his way. Monday morning, I walked into Carter Recovery Center's headquarters for the second time in a week. This time, I wasn't a desperate wife looking for answers. I was a shareholder. Richard had put stock in my name years ago, a tax strategy, he'd called it. He never imagined I'd use it against him. The boardroom was full when I arrived. 12 members, all men, all chosen by Richard over the years. They looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Richard sat at the head of the table. When he saw me, his face went pale. "Olivia, this is a closed meeting." "I'm a shareholder. I have the right to address the board. This isn't appropriate. Neither is using company facilities to threaten your wife with involuntary commitment." I set the folder on the table. "Neither is paying company doctors to sign false psychiatric evaluations. Neither is maintaining a secret family for 19 years while presenting yourself as a model of integrity." The board members shifted uncomfortably. One of them, Harrison Wells, the oldest member, reached for the folder. "May I?" I nodded. He opened it, read. His expression changed from skepticism to shock to something like disgust. "Richard," he said quietly, "is any of this true?" Richard didn't answer. He was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not calculation, something closer to wonder. "You actually did it," he said. "You actually destroyed me." "No, Richard, you destroyed yourself. I just showed everyone the wreckage." The vote was unanimous. Richard Carter was removed as CEO of Carter Recovery Centers, effective immediately. An independent investigation was launched into the use of company resources for personal matters. His seat on the board was suspended pending the investigation's results. He walked out of the building without saying a word to anyone. I watched him go. This man I'd loved for 30 years, this man who'd stolen my sister, my mother, 19 years of my life. I felt nothing, not triumph, not satisfaction, just a vast, quiet emptiness where the anger used to be. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Richard didn't contest it. He couldn't. The evidence was too damaging, and his lawyers advised him to settle quietly before more details became public. I received 40% of the marital assets, plus the house in Greenwich, plus a settlement that would keep me comfortable for the rest of my life. It wasn't about the money. It was never about the money. It was about standing in a courtroom, hearing a judge say that my marriage was dissolved, and knowing that I was finally, completely free. Helena called me the week after the divorce was final. "Richard left Aspen," she said. "Moved to somewhere in Europe." He didn't say goodbye to Sophie. "How is she?" Angry, hurt, relieved. Helena paused. "She's starting Stanford in the fall. She wants to study psychology. Says she wants to understand how people like her father work. Smart girl. She gets it from her aunt." I smiled at that. "And you? What will you do?" "I don't know. For the first time in 19 years, I get to decide for myself." Another pause. "I was thinking of coming to Connecticut. Maybe we could try being sisters again." My throat tightened. "I'd like that." "I don't expect you to forgive me, Olivia. Not completely. Maybe not ever. But I want to try. I want to be part of your life again, if you'll let me." I thought about the letter she'd written in 2005, the apology I never received. The 19 years we'd lost. "Come to Greenwich," I said. "We'll figure it out together." 6 months after the divorce, I hosted Thanksgiving at the house. The table was full for the first time in years. Emma and her boyfriend, Grace and her new puppy. Lucas, still rebuilding his life after resigning from Carter recovery centers. He'd taken a job at a non-profit, half the salary but twice the purpose. Helena sat at my right, nervous and hopeful. Sophie sat at my left, already fitting into the family like she'd always been there. Even Dorothy came. My mother, 80 years old now, frail and tearful. We hadn't spoken since I confronted her in Bridgeport. But when she called asking to come, I said yes. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, it's a choice you make over and over every day until the weight of anger becomes lighter than the weight of holding on. I wasn't ready to forgive her completely. Maybe I never would be. But I was ready to let her sit at my table and eat my food, and be part of whatever family we were building from the ashes. After dinner, I walked out to the rose garden. The bushes were dormant now, bare branches against the November sky. But in spring, they would bloom again, they always did. Sophie found me there. "Aunt Olivia, are you okay?" I looked at this girl, my niece, my husband's daughter. The secret that had defined my life for 19 years without me knowing it. "I'm okay," I said. "Better than okay." "Mom told me what you did, how you stood up to him, how you brought everything into the light." Sophie stood beside me, looking at the garden. "She said you could have destroyed her too, exposed her as the other woman, made her look like a villain, but you didn't. Helena was a victim too, a different kind of victim, but still." I turned to face her. "Your father was very good at making people feel like they had no choice. But there's always a choice. Sometimes it just takes us a while to see it." "Do you regret it? Any of it?" I considered the question. The 30 years of marriage, the 3 children I raised, now grown and finding their own way. The sister I lost and found again. The mother who betrayed me and sat at my table anyway. "I regret the years I spent not knowing," I finally said, "but I don't regret how it ended." The truth was always going to come out. At least this way, I got to choose how. Sophie nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you're my aunt, and I'm glad Mom finally has her sister back." She hugged me, a quick, fierce embrace, and then went back inside, where the light was warm and the voices were loud, and the family was waiting. I stayed in the garden a moment longer. Somewhere in Europe, Richard Carter was starting over. New name maybe, new life, running from the wreckage of the empire he'd built. I hoped he found whatever he was looking for. I hoped he learned something about love, about honesty, about the cost of treating people like pieces on a board. But mostly, I hoped I never thought about him again. I turned and walked back toward the house. Through the windows, I could see my children laughing, my sister smiling, my mother dabbing her eyes with a napkin. It wasn't the family I'd imagined 30 years ago. It wasn't perfect or healed or whole, but it was mine. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. The end. Did this story move you? Comment below what you would have done in Olivia's place. And if you have your own story of betrayal, resilience, or finding strength when everything falls apart, send it to our channel. Your truth might be the light someone else needs.